Slayer's jabs have been buffed. Previously, it wasn't possible to combo them into any of his special moves, and you had to rely on Gatlings in order to continue the combo, but it was hard to two-hit confirm, in fact, pretty much impossible to two-hit confirm into anything that would actually give you special follow-ups. You had to go for 6P, but if you did two jabs, the opponent would usually be pushed too far away. You could get a light Mappa Hunch, but that just left the opponent standing with you and them in a +0 situation. Now, the attack level has been increased and the recovery has also been increased, so there's still the same frame advantage on block. However, now you're actually able to combo into the K version of Mappa Hunch, giving you a knockdown off of your jabs. A nice buff for Slayer's defense. Probably the big change of the patch is to 2 heavy slashes, blowback on counter hit. Previously, at pretty much any range, you'd be able to go into pile bunker loops with this move. However, now with the increased pushback, at these ranges, well, the opponent actually gets pushed out of your close slash range after you use a dandy step punch version. If you're point blank, you can still get the pile bunker loops, but that's basically using it as more of a low crushing tool, catching the opponent mashing and killing it as a spacing tool. In fact, just as a demonstration, previously you could use block strings like this to get the spacing and then go into pile bunker loops on reward if the opponent tried to press against you and if you're able to catch them with that 2 heavy slash. Now, if you do these same block strings, your spacing trap from 2 heavy slash is significantly worse because you don't get into range to start your pile bunker loops, and instead you have to go for different combo routing. I didn't really find the optimal follow-up here, but you kind of have to look at using things that link into your 5K. Master's Hammer has some adjustments as well, some nerfs and buffs. Its recovery has been nerfed, going from 16 frames of recovery to 24 frames of recovery, meaning the opponent will be more likely to punish Slayer if they have a late reaction to it. I've just compared the frame data here on an immediate jump. Previously, the opponent would be -5, and now Slayer is -3. You can punish this by jumping it and coming down with an air normal regardless, but if you have a later reaction, it should be more easy for you to punish. Additionally, on hit, the properties have been changed, all of them buffs. The opponent would ground tech on landing, meaning that Slayer didn't really get too much Okizeme, nor could he link any sort of follow-up off of this move as well. So if you were successful and didn't get a counter hit, then you didn't really get too much for this mix-up and you weren't able to loop your offense. On counter hit, you were able to get full combos. Now on hit, the opponent is hard knockdown, meaning that Slayer has a lot of Oki to work with to set up any sort of mix-up that he chooses to. He can also OTG off of this, adding on some extra damage and causing the opponent to back tech as well, but you don't get a combo off of it without counter hit. Additionally, the launch on counter hit has been increased in height, which should allow you to devise some new combo routes, maybe get some side swaps off of this, maybe do higher damage routes than you did before. Slayer all but disappeared, I think, from a lot of top-level representation in the last couple of patch cycles with the nerfs to him, the buffs to many other characters, and I think a lot of that had to do with how weak his defense got. His 5-frame jabs didn't really have any sort of reward or knockdown state for him to get any sort of offense going, so even if he was able to correctly challenge the opponent, he just didn't get any offense started because his best-case scenario was to get a standing reset with Punch Mappa Hunch. Otherwise, he would have to go from a single jab into 6P to force you off of him and to get a knockdown of some kind, and that wasn't really match practical for you to try and mash. If you were wrong, then you were just ending your pressure with a 6P, or worse yet, you could be mashing out with a 6P instead of your 5-frame jabs. So now that Slayer has a reliable means of hit confirming 2 jabs into a knockdown, this means his defense is a lot better, and he has a lot more incentive to try and poke out against some of the gaps in the opponent's offense. He does pay a small price for it, of course, with the 2 heavy slash nerf. The fact that he can no longer just always go into pile bunker loops is going to hurt him. They are going to be a lot more situational, but we'll see if that overall affects, like, how much that affects him, I guess is like a way to put it, as that kind of feels like, all right, he won't explode people who are just mindlessly pressing against him as much for him spamming that 2 heavy slash, but if he makes the right read against the opponent and the opponent makes a bad play, or they make a play that loses to it, at the very least, he can still get access to some of those high damage routes. And Master's Hammer, while it is a little bit more punishable, it does seem to potentially lead to some better rewards on hit, especially the Okizeme on a raw hit. If he hits you with this and he doesn't have a means to convert, the fact that he's also just able to go into some real Oki and possibly set up some unreactable left-right mix-up stuff can make him a more dangerous character that gives him a lot more Okizeme options. So I do think he's nerfed in some ways, but I also think he has enough compensation to more than make up for it, and I do also think that he will appreciate some of the nerfs to the other top-tier characters quite a bit. We'll see how he plays. I do think Slayer is a very cool character, but I can understand why he can be a very frustrating character for people to fight against. He's a character full of knowledge checks, and if you don't know the checks, he's going to kill you. But I think now he's a little less likely to do that as fast, namely from the 2 heavy slash nerf.